It's the 11th hour here in the Hearthstone Champ Store's Winter Championship. Welcome, everybody, to the last Sunday of the year of the Ravens competitive year. My name is Frode, and I'm joined by Brian Kibler. We have just one more day of broadcast, Kibler. And you know what? We mentioned in the pre-show, it's a little bit sentimental, but it's also very exciting. Who is going to close out the year on top?
Yeah, there's a lot on the stake, or the line for these players, both the ones we'll be seeing now as well as the ones in the tussles later on. And there's a lot of storylines that can still go. Will bloodyface make it to another final? Will bunnyhoppor win another championship? There are a few ways that these players could really exceed their previous performances, but they're still possible.
That's right. And on the other side, will any of these rookies, players like Jing from China, be able to climb on through? Or perhaps a player that we've seen compete for many years and has transitioned to be a streamer, like stories of so many of the other popular players like Tyson, Firebat, who have also had an accomplished resume in Hearthstone. Roger from Taiwan, can he continue to go to the top 4? So I think all the players definitely have their own interesting stories for people to read into. And we'll see what the cards end up saying in the final decisive series that they'll be playing, either this one or the following one. A quick look at bloodyface, a snapshot of his career resume. He got second in the Fall Championship. That was just 4 months ago, right here in Blizzard Arena. But if you look at him competitively, the first time I ever saw him was when he was making the 2015 push. And I remember because he was playing in the same bracket as Firebat and Trump ended up beating Firebat to advance to the Americas Championship back then. But happening on the other side of the bracket was bloodyface at the time, which I didn't really know much about. And now, 4 years later, I see him dominating the America scene.
Yeah, bloodyface has a pretty long background in competitive card gaming in general, but only this year did he really decide that he was going to focus hard on Hearthstone. He quit his job and became a full-time Hearthstone player, and that decision has paid off in spades. We see that he made it all the way to the finals at the earlier championship, and now he has another chance to do the same or even do one better.
On the other side, you see Roger making a lot of his waves back in the Legendary Series in Season 2. Now, that was back when TJ and I only wore blue shirts, Frodan had black hair, and Reynad still casted.
Legendary Season 2, by the way, was the first match of Hearthstone that I cast.
That's right. I was actually about to say, that was when Brian Kibler
I just showed up to hang out. Like, want to cast a match? Sure, and here I am now.
That's right. It was the beginning, the blossoming days of Kibler ascension to being the top caster in Hearthstone. And I think many people look back at Roger and say, you know what, there's a huge gap. And that was largely because him, along with a lot of other Taiwanese streamers, were transitioning into content creation. But they never gave up that competitive drive. I asked Roger yesterday in the interviews, like, what really keeps you going? It's like, you know what, this one, for a while, was when I competed, it was for me, but this time it's for my fans.
Yeah, and that is obviously a big factor for a lot of these players trying to build up that reputation, that notoriety within the community. And looking at the players' deck lists right here, we were talking before we went on about how there are some interesting decisions here. bloodyface was going really to the last minute with his ban decision and decided to ban Roger's Death Rattle Hunter, which, if you look at the sort of basic info of Death Rattle Hunter against his lineup, isn't necessarily the percentage call just by the basic numbers, but Roger specifically is playing a version of Death Rattle Hunter that is very anti-combo oriented with 2 Nerubian Unravelers.
Right.
And we saw yesterday how powerful Nerubian Unraveler was when it was in play against Ike's Cloning Gallery Priest. It just kept him from playing anything. Any spells got cubed. The cube got play dead. There were two Unravelers in play, and that's what Roger is hoping to do against bloodyface's very combo-oriented lineup.
Right. Yeah. The Carnivorous Cube can sometimes set up like 4, maybe even 6 Nerubian Unravelers throughout the course of the game, and that disrupts pretty much all of bloodyface's decks. That isn't exactly just even Paladin, I guess. So we'll end up seeing what happens in game number 1 to start things off. This is a good matchup for bloodyface. Even Paladin is one of his better decks, and I will say, even after the bans, which seem a little bit suboptimal for bloodyface, only because of the tech cards throwing a big curveball into the mix, bloodyface still is almost a 2-to-1 favorite, despite that. So we'll see if that 60-40 or 2-to-1 edge ends up favoring bloodyface enough, or Roger be able to pull off an upset, and he's going to need to win matchups like this, which is even Paladin versus Quest Rogue.
It's not a great opening hand for bloodyface, though. He mulliganed and picked up a number of expensive cards. Spikeridge Steed, fairly weak against the Vanish deck. Tyrion, also quite slow. He doesn't have a 2-drop, which is one of the really important things you want to keep the pressure on in the early game, because your Silverhand recruits can just get daggered down.
Right, and bloodyface, I kind of was talking to him on the shuttle over here, and he was giving me some insight. He told me that it's rough playing at 8 a.m. because he's normally sleeping at like 6 a.m. He's a true gamer. He's nocturnal, definitely more of a night owl. Likes to wake up when the sun is already in the middle of setting. Through and through a competitive Hearthstone.
We were saying that, oh well, that's great for when you travel overseas.
Right.
Just totally flip the time zone. You're just ready.
He's so ahead of the meta. He's adjusted to Taiwan's World Championship time zone 3 months in advance.
All right, well, Roger here, he's got double Vanish in his opening hand, so that will be a draw that can really punish a slower draw from bloodyface.
Right.
If bloodyface does not get his aggression going, it's going to be very difficult for him to be able to get damage in with mid-sized minions in the late game. Another expensive card draw for bloodyface, so 0 2-drops means that he can only hero power this turn, and that's where you do not want to be in this matchup.
Yeah, I think the Lich King, Gen Greymane, and Sunkeeper Tarim are like the only other expensive cards he could draw. Everything else will be low curve. And that's going to actually really hurt in the later stages of the game when bloodyface has more mana and wants to spend all of his resources to pressure Roger, and he just can't. He'll be either floating mana or just run out of cards.
Yeah, and here, Roger's able to use his hero power and take down one of these recruits. Again, bloodyface really hoping to find a 2-drop here.
Looks like a Choose Over champion to me.
This is a rough draw from bloodyface.
Yeah, and more importantly, this is one of the crucial decks for bloodyface to take down repeatedly. Quest Rogue does end up struggling a little bit against a lot of the decks that bloodyface has with mid-range Hunter and even Paladin. I guess the Quest Rogue Mirror isn't something that it struggles against, but overall in this field, Quest Rogue has been targeted a lot by some of these aggressive strategies.
All right, well, Roger, because of the lack of pressure, he's able to just make some quest progress, get some damage in, and bizarrely enough, the Brewmaster is the biggest minion on the board.
Yeah, and that Hydrologist comes
One turn too late.
Very late. But, at the same time, it still is something. Bloodyface can distribute his mana to the point where he can Hydrologist, play that 1-mana secret and hero power. Then next turn he has the ability to play one of his 4-mana cards like True Server Champion or the Spellbreaker, and then utilize 5 mana going to 6. It looks like in this case, bloodyface doesn't want to give any opportunity for Roger to keep those bounces going, eliminate the biggest bet on the board, and also set up the 4-mana preemptively in case he picks up something else better, like a Corpse Taker or a Blessing of Kings. However, I don't think that Blessing of Kings will do very much because Roger should take down all of these Paladin tokens, if you will.
Yeah, and this is just a terrible position for bloodyface here. Roger has had these early turns to be able to really weather the storm without taking meaningful damage.
Right.
And yes, bloodyface, yeah, you have board control, but that's not what matters in this matchup. If you're playing against, say, Odd Rogue here, Tempo Rogue here, you look at this and you're like, oh, it's good position for bloodyface. But what really matters is bloodyface putting Roger in a position where he can finish him off with Avenging Wrath in the mid to late stages of the game when Roger's forced to vanish an aggressive board or something like that.
Right. The caveat to that is Roger does have a handful of effective whiffs as well. One of the things is when he's given time, he's not exactly utilizing that time very well. When he doesn't have his Elven Minstrel, doesn't have his Mimic Pods, doesn't have ways to his Knobs Engineers, ways to really utilize his mana.
Consecration, even the draw for bloodyface, still just such a slow, aggressive draw. I mean, his best aggressive play here is just Spellbreaker. Just get the most power on the board. Because Roger, I mean, you say that he has kind of effective whiffs. He's played that deckhand once. He has another deckhand. He has Shadow Step and 2 Vanishes. So if bloodyface is not putting enough pressure on him that he can wait and just build up the mana to be able to play all of those, that's quest completion. So, Roger just needs time. He's not missing any of the key pieces of what his deck needs in order to operate. He just needs time, and bloodyface, with this very slow draw, is giving him lots of time.
Well, I don't disagree there. I think the vanishes just being used to complete the quest, though, is something that is a last-minute desperation move from Roger, because vanish should be the way he answers a big board for bloodyface, especially if he's playing things like Tyrion and Spikeridge Steed.
Well, absolutely. I'm not suggesting that he just play the vanish the deckhand by itself, but those vanishes give him the ability to answer the mid-game push from bloodyface while also advancing his quest.
Right.
Which, because he has so much life to work with and so little threat in the board, is just a really comfortable situation for him.
Right. I mean, I completely understand what you're saying. I'm saying that Roger himself is having a little bit of an awkward mid-game too right now.
It's not perfect, that's for sure. But more important is bloodyface's draw, because Roger is the one who tends to win if this game goes long. We did see Roger lose again the game against Even Paladin that went very long. Bunny Hopper was able to set up this ridiculous game where he fatigued him just yesterday. But that is much more of an anomaly.
Yeah, I totally understand. However, I do want to say that as much as Even Paladin is board-centric, don't sleep on the fact that bloodyface has 8 damage from Avenging Wrath, 8 damage from Valinir. If he's able to just get Spikeridge Steed in for damage, it's still 2 damage there. I mean, it would get kind of close to the point where Roger might just die to straight-up direct burst. It's not impossible, and it's not necessarily the most likely outcome. I'm just saying that something to consider, because people always think Even Paladin or all these other Paladin decks are so board-centric. Once in a while, they just hit you for like 10 in a turn, and you're like, oh, I was not expecting that.
Absolutely, yeah. There is a lot of burst potential, and that's one of the advantages that he has against a Vanish deck, for instance. Your opponent vanishes, you're like, all right, well, I'll Avenging Wrath, I'll blow you up. But now there's a Wax Element on the play. He's certainly not going to get through that with a Spikeridge Steed. He just played his Spellbreaker because he needed something, and is faced immediately with something that stops that Spellbreaker in his tracks that he'd love to have a Spellbreaker against.
Well, bloodyface has some pretty interesting options here. Redemption helps him have a sticky board. It's a little bit awkward when your opponent has vanishes, but Hidden Wisdom is also something to consider, because Quest Rogue does go for those big combos. And if he doesn't feel like his hand is good enough, he can go for that option. Ooh, big pickup here from Roger.
And I mean, this is a situation where Roger, if he wishes, can play the deckhand and just vanish, get all this back to bloodyface's hand.
I like that, because now you actually have the way to reload with the Elven Minstrel.
And this is the sort of situation where vanish is just super powerful, because you are answering this wide board from your opponent. That's 10 mana bloodyface expended. None of those minions actually got to hit Roger in the face. He's still at 23, and Roger's able to advance his quest.
Ooh. Sorry to interrupt you there, Kibler. I think that Ooze is actually a lot more impactful than you might initially look at, because your opponent's using Sousy Deckhand for the charges, so you're going to force him off 2 more mana.
Yeah.
This is like a little miniature New Ruby Unraveler, if you will. Just clog up 2 more mana that they can't utilize easily. Because if that was the case, Roger would have had a much cleaner play. Still, Elven Minstrel here is perfectly fine. Might end up just sapping the Corpse Taker just out of fear, because it's still a lot of burst damage.
Yep. I mean, the threat of Spellbreaker knows in their hand plus Kings. That's just so much damage.
Right.
He did not draw Glacial Shard, so that's not an option. So I would expect to see the sap here from Roger, and yeah, that's exactly what happens. He wants to prevent the threat of that Corpse Taker hitting. And again, he has that second Vanish in hand. So a big push now from bloodyface can be met by a Vanish number 2.
Yeah, at the same time, bloodyface has an opportunity to go aggressive too. He has the silence on the Wax Elemental and a Consecration to push 9 effective damage this turn. That puts Roger to 14, and when you have Valinir and Avenging Wrath, it's not so out of the world of possibility that you kill him. That being said, you also know Roger's fairly close to the quest, so Avenging Wrath might not be able to get an opportunity to hit 8 to the face very, very soon for the rest of the game, because everything will be 4/4s, and without equalities into your deck to guarantee that easy clear, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough spot for bloodyface. I do like the suggestion that you made of Oh, he's going to Consecration. Okay. And just replay the Corpse Taker. This, I think, is a nod to, well, I've already seen the Sap of Vanish. This is, this Corpse Taker can represent a lot of damage coming in. And, he still has his Spellbreaker to push through, potentially a 4/4 taunt if there's another Wax Element that comes down as well.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, because of the way that the Corpse Taker protects that acidic Swamp Ooze, Roger vanishing this also once again complicates his Southsea Deckhand.
Yeah,
because he needs that weapon to get charge and use it effectively. Otherwise, Southsea Deckhand is just a vanilla 4/4 when you play it with the quest buff.
Gonna coin out an Elven Minstrel.
Yeah. I think he's looking for bouncers. I think he's looking for
Glacial Shard is a huge thing here. He finds Lab Recruiter and Brewmaster, so
that works for later.
Finds a Glacial Shard. That is very important because right now, his Vanish otherwise is his only way to deal with the Corpse Taker, which, as we mentioned, represents a lot of damage.
I hope you like my invention.
Oh, there's another Wax Elemental. He does know that there's a Spellbreaker there, though. And now he has seen a Consecration, which does suggest that this is a board that may just survive, unlikely to get cleared off. Not that much damage that bloodyface can push right now, thanks to that freeze effect as well.
Looks like he might just end up going for the Avenging Wrath. Wants to maximize his chance of clearing the board. And 5 to the face is still pretty effective. And I mean, this is still scary in its own right. I mean, technically, bloodyface has that lethal setup, even though we know it's not likely this ends up happening that way.
Oh, Preparation.
Okay. That's a really nice pickup, too.
Yeah. So, Deckhand, Brewmaster Deckhand, I believe, completes the quest.
Yes.
Or Prep Vanish. Yeah.
The Prep Vanish is interesting because...
Well, now he can't Deckhand and quest.
Right, but he can set up, so what he could end up doing is, say, like, Mimic Pod or set up the weapon preemptively.
Yeah. And, just like we're saying, very early on in this game, bloodyface just didn't have an aggressive enough draw, and Roger was able to kind of sit back, remove 2 powerful mid-game boards with Vanish, and also advance his quest with them. And now bloodyface is in a position, he burned a card. His Corpse Taker is no longer a Wind Fury minion, thanks to drawing Wind Fury Harpy, and doesn't have a way to deal with this board that's going to be a bunch of 4/4s, including a Life Stealer.
Yeah, he can silence the Lifesteal effect.
Can get bounced right back and then rush again. So
it's not exactly what he's looking for, though, and I feel like.
I mean,
okay.
Does he just want to play Tyrion?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
He has Redemption up, right?
Both Vanishes and Sap has been used.
Yeah.
Roger has no other ways to easily deal with that outside of brute force.
Tyrion here, I think, is actually quite powerful with the Redemption already up. He can get another Redemption here.
That's true.
There's no backstab or anything in Roger's deck that could kill the. That can kill the Hydrologist behind it. So, with all of the bounce effects gone here.
Oh man, that's another big draw.
Glacial Shard is quite powerful here.
It freezes the face, which is, or has the ability to freeze any minion, or any enemy rather. The real key, I think, is keeping bloodyface's weapon attacks in check, because that's another source of damage that is in the back of Roger's mind.
So many.
Well, right now, I mean, he can't really easily get through this Tyrion. If he does think that this is Redemption, he hasn't any reason to think that it is anything else, I think.
Oh, boy.
Whoa.
That's kind of the stuff. That's the juice right there. Getting 2 Sonya Shadow Dancers.
Yeah, that is something that can easily get through a Tyrion.
Not 1, but 2. And now bloodyface has very little things he can do in this position.
Yeah.
However, he can stack Spike Ridge Steed, but the point is that because Roger has double Sonya, that's just going to mean that he goes back to full life because of... actually, no. He can deal with Valnir. That's actually very effective. But still, Chargers, Freezes, Bouncers.
Yeah, this is... I mean, can he just kill him here?
Actually, it's a good question. Oh, the redemption.
He has.
Probably stop him.
There was a shake of the head from bloodyface.
Double Sonya.
Double Sonya actually means that he'd get 2 every time something dies. I don't know that he needs it. Like because he could if he attacks with 7 deckhands here, right?
Well, that's the thing. He needs
he's
the
a
charge.
dagger,
he needs,
right?
he
He's
needs
a
a
dagger.
charge. Yeah, this is
He can
kind of
have
why we said
5
the ooze.
deckhands.
That's why we said the oozes was
So
kind of
he
important.
can attack with 5 deckhands after this. So the first one.
And there's 2 more attacks you have to go through because of redemption.
Right.
It should be no, because the 5 would mean the 20 right now. He doesn't have to. But you can still collect them.
Yep.
And in fact, you can just clear the board.
Mm-hmm.
I think time is on your side. You have that. You have that inevitability.
Right. So yeah, he could do 12 to the face here if he wanted, but he can also just kill both these minions or kill one of these minions. And oh no, he can kill both of them and set up either Glacial Shard or Wax Elemental.
Yeah, I like the Glacial Shard. Just shut down any possible damage.
Yeah.
And this is looking really bad for bloodyface. That early game start just way too slow. No outs really for him in this spot. This Avenging Wrath is extremely weak in this spot, and now you can see the value of having that 1 even paladin equality teched in. Because I'd argue that equality in this spot would actually give bloodyface a reasonable fighting chance to help clear the board and push damage, and that's why I kind of like that 1 of in Bunny Hopper's even paladin deck list.
Yeah, bloodyface trying to figure out if there's any way out of this, but I think the answer is no. There's even a second Sonya waiting in Roger's hand to give him endless copies of these minions.
Right. He would actually need Avenging Wrath to clear off both the Sonya and the Sousy Deckhand on board for him to survive. Because if he plays anything and Spikered Steed, then it's going to be a repeat of the previous turn. The Sousy Deckhand just repeatedly trades into the minion, and then you get damage.
And that's what bloodyface sees. He's like, all right, this is a narrow, narrow hope, and that hope is gone. And bloodyface, wow, concedes game number 1, and this is a matchup that he is really hoping to go his way and does not. And Roger picks up a big win that puts him 1 step closer to the final.
That's a huge upset in this series in terms of how favored even paladins versus Quest Rogue. It's the best matchup that bloodyface has, assuming he doesn't play his own Quest Rogue against Clone Priest. But even then, I would say the Clone Priest has a different take on it, or a different percentage chance because of Roger's take on it. So we'll end up seeing if this momentum carries over for Roger, or can bloodyface bring it back. At the same time, is that just a bad draw, bad luck game?
I mean, frankly, I think it was. I think that the Even Paladin deck really relies on having the early game pressure against Quest Rogue, and without it, as we saw, they just have so much time to leverage their vanishes as incredibly powerful defensive tools as well as quest progression.
All right. Well, I mean, there's still a lot more Hearthstone to be played. This is the best of 5. So bloodyface in this spot still has several choices at his disposal. At the same time, Roger has to be feeling pretty good because Quest Rogue was one of his weakest decks in this lineup. The other one is his Even Warlock, and I'm not sure about that deck either here, Kibler, because it's been one of the worst performing decks this tournament.
It has struggled overall, and here, though, again, Roger's lineup is extremely anti-combo oriented. The Even Warlock with Double Unraveler, I think, is in a pretty solid spot against potentially the Clone Gallery Priest and maybe even the Quest Rogue from bloodyface. It definitely has different ways to disrupt the opposing game plan.
All right, so when we come back, we're going to get ready for game number 2 between bloodyface and Roger.
大家好，我是罗杰，然后我来自亚太区，在玩一些类似游戏王的纸牌游戏，然后后来接触之后，我发现，自己玩的不错，然后就一直慢慢玩，时间久而久之就到现在这样了，对，也没有说特别什么。就其实我一开始玩炉石是因为那个朋友介绍，然后我小时候其实就对我自己来说，我觉得跟朋友一起玩炉石这件事情是很重要。然后因为我们可以互相讨论，然后我们也可以互相进步，每次的比赛就可以一起作战，我觉得这也是可以一直往下走的很大的关键。我想就是因为我这个比赛其实 就是不光我自己准备，还有我一些朋友，我希望，因为他们也有一起努力过这个比赛，那我希望我可以把他们的那份也一起努力起来。就是其实有那么多人支持我玩游戏的风格，我觉得是不会，就知道自己有那么多人支持我，然后我会更加努力，然后更希望能发挥好自己的实力，然后拿到好成绩。我觉得就是也没有说想要借由这个比赛来证明自己，因为我觉得就算赢或者是输，就是也没有办法就让大家有别的就是其他的改变，但我觉得。就是我希望我能发挥我最好的实力，然后这样我觉得就已经很足够了。
The name bloodyface is not like something that has super significance with me. I was drunk playing Hearthstone with my friends at like 3 in the morning, and I was making an account, and I'd never played the game before, and we were watching a TV show called American Horror Story, and I could not think of a screen name, so I literally put down the first thing that popped in my mind. Little did I know it'd carry on with me into my professional career. I feel like as I climb the rank ladder, I'm definitely collecting more blood on my face, you know, the blood of my victims, as any serial killer would do.
Yeah.
Different options as well, which is what is confusing
Bloodyface
us.
basically just freestyled on us.
I don't want people to come think I'm actually a serial killer, though. I quit my software engineering job earlier last year to pursue Hearthstone full-time. I wasn't qualified for any big tournaments when I quit my job. I wasn't a big streamer. I pretty much had next to no resources other than some money I'd saved up. And I basically had a dream of being a Hearthstone player, and I put in a lot of hard work and put in a lot of effort. You know, it is possible to, you know, take a risk and have it pay off.
Bloodyface showing that control can get the job done versus aggro, even with these quest rogues.
So it's pretty frequent that I'll stay up for 24 hours prepping. I feel a lot of anxiety, you know, getting closer to the deck submission deadline. I just want to make sure every card in my lineup's perfect. When I'm not playing Hearthstone and I want to find my happy spot, the best thing I do is just take a bath. I find taking a bath just to be very relaxing, just soaking in the water. To my fans, I'll stay as calm and collected during the match as I am in my bathtub.
Welcome back, everyone, to the semifinals of HCT Winter Championship Sunday. Roger's currently up 1-0 after being able to defeat the Even Paladin with his Quest Rogue. And if he can get past his game 2, which I am told that he's playing as Even Warlock, then things will be clear skies for Roger to potentially close out this series and move on to the finals of the seasonal championship.
Yeah, that first game we mentioned already was a big upset and puts Roger in a much stronger position than he was in prior to the matchup overall. You know, his my brain is melting briefly. His Quest Rogue was one of his weaker decks against some of Bloodyface's lineup, and that does, you know, really help him. Also, given the fact that his other decks are much stronger against Even Paladin.
Yep, that's right. And so now Bloodyface will turn to his own Quest Rogue to see if he can take this down. Quest Rogue against Even Warlock. Definitely a matchup that Quest Rogue doesn't mind, but it's not as one-sided as you might think. It's very dependent on whether or not they can keep the Even Paladins, or sorry, the Even Warlock's threats in check early on. And I wonder how things like Nerubian Unraveler, plays a factor in this matchup. Probably not exactly what he's targeting, but it might help.
It is a relevant card because it does contain the Quest Rogue's ability to deal with a lot of your big boards. If you set up a big board and then play Nerubian Unraveler, there's no vanish, there's no prep vanish, there's no prep anything. While Nerubian Unraveler is in play, which really disrupts some of the most powerful tools the Quest Rogue deck does have.
Yeah.
But speaking of powerful tools, that's a Sonya Shadow Dancer, plus Chargers in Bloodyface's hand. And that can really put Roger in a sticky situation very quickly.
Yeah, and more importantly, Roger doesn't have any real threat in his hand. I mean, if he had Mountain Giant, maybe he'd life tap aggressively to it, but right now...
He does have the Ooze, which is meaningful here, because it does, you know, soak a little bit of mana from Bloodyface at least. It does put him in a little bit of a more awkward situation, though, you know, Bloodyface not really necessarily doing much with his mana this turn. Sonya Shadow Step is available to Bloodyface, which really sets up the goods. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, so in Bloodyface's mind, he doesn't necessarily need to invest his mana into Sonya right now. He could just Shadow Step at the very end of his turn.
Well, this way he can play.
Yes, this Southsea deckhand and the Shadow Step Sonya at the very end. It is a little bit less mana efficient because the previous turn you could have done the similar thing. You could have played Sonya and Shadow Stepped it, but he doesn't. But he gives Roger the information,
Right.
which I think he wanted to conceal. Now this way, Bloodyface finishes the quest the following turn, guaranteed, and Roger has a Spellbreaker on him. That's pretty much what's going to happen. Shroomber is okay, serviceable. Bloodyface taking a lot of damage though.
Yeah, he's down to 14. And there is that Nerubian Unraveler again, which can slow down the quest. And that Vanish. This is actually not by any means a safe position for Bloodyface despite the early quest completion, because it will leave Bloodyface with a board and have that Nerubian Unraveler as a disruptive tool that Bloodyface does not have a great way to remove. Although it looks like, yeah, he's going to actually protect Sonya with Wax Elemental.
It's actually so
This
annoying.
is really important because the Wax Elemental means that Roger needs to kill Sonya before he can really, like, for instance, right now, if it weren't for the Wax Elemental, Roger could just play the Nerubian Unraveler, and Nerubian Unraveler would stop quests from coming down. However, with the Wax Elemental in play, if he just attacks into this, it's like, okay, plays Nerubian Unraveler, it's like, all right, well, I will just play a bunch more deckhands, kill your stuff. So he needs to get rid of the Sonya, which he cannot do while also blocking the quest with Unraveler.
So many possibilities.
Huh, very interesting position. He can play, say, Dread Infernal, kill the Wax Elemental, kill Sonya, which I would expect to see. Yeah, just kind of piece together what's the best aggressive play that gives you a board and gets rid of Sonya. And I think that's it.
Yeah. And then if your opponent finishes the quest, he still has to answer the big board. In fact, quest from Bloodyface isn't enough. Quest means that he only can play a single 4/4, and Roger still threatens lethal on the following turn.
There is the possibility for Vanish. He can just vanish this board. If he draws Preparation, he does not. He draws an Acidic, or rather a Glacial Shard.
So the only way to finish the quest is Southsea Deckhand this turn. Otherwise, he vanishes.
Well, he has Crystal Core in his hand already.
Sorry, I meant you're completely right. So the only way he can answer this partially this board is to play that or the Glacial Shard or the Stone Tusk board. So I guess he does have his options, but he's also at 13 life, so this is extremely scary. And if he plays like Wax Elementals, opponents could just silence and win.
Right.
So the
same thing is true about Freeze Effect as well.
Right. So if he wants to survive guaranteed, he vanishes this turn. Thankfully for him, I mean, a lot of mana has been already spent on these minions, so it's going to take a while for him to get them out again.
Though then that does open the board for Nerubian Unraveler to come down. If he vanishes this, and Unraveler comes down, you haven't played your quest yet. Yeah, it looks like he's going to go for it though.
Yeah, but even if the Nerubian Unraveler comes out, that takes up all of Roger's turn.
Right.
And so Bloodyface can just freeze.
Develop small minions. But if you develop small minions, he's vulnerable to just getting Defiled or Hellfired and losing those minions, so he has nothing for any quest.
Defile just got burned, but what he could do is finish the quest anyway.
He can just complete quest. That does put him to 8 life, getting attacked for 5. Oh, that's an enormous draw for Bloodyface here, because the threat of dropping to 8 from this, and just being in range of. I mean, I guess he's not in range of just a Bone Mare right now or anything like that.
And he does have the comeback tool through the Vicious Scalehide, but it's not guaranteed.
No, but it's very important because that gives him a lot more life total to work with. But I mean, this is clearly a example of just how powerful this Nerubian Unraveler is against these combo decks. This isn't even a spell-oriented combo deck. This isn't something like a Card Druid. This isn't something like Cloning Gallery Priest. There's barely any spells in this deck, but they're very important. And if it weren't for that Nerubian Unraveler, this could be Crystal Core into double minion. Instead, Bloodyface just has to play his quest.
Right.
And now he is very vulnerable to what Roger can follow it up with.
Yep. Roger can also continue to go for disruption. He knows that Southsea Deckhand is in bloodyface's hand, so he could go for the Acidic Swamp Ooze again to shut out that charge. Also gives him the ability to just set up annoying minions like this this ooze.
Yeah, and I like Roger going for multiple minions here, and interestingly enough, the Stubborn Gastropod's a pretty big deal because it makes it much harder for Bloodyface to charge down the smaller minions.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so
Very important.
he can Bloodyface can play Boar to kill the Gastropod,
Right.
and then has Vicious Scalehide to kill
The ooze.
to kill the ooze, and then could also kill the 4/4 if he wants.
And then freeze the Nerubian Unraveler.
Right.
You know, the Nerubian Unraveler at this point actually does a lot more to Roger than to Bloodyface.
It
Because
is-
he's
it
already
is-
spent all of the
Right, exactly.
spells.
Bloodyface actually kind of wants that to just stay in play.
Right.
Because Roger's deck has a bunch of spells. Bloodyface has Preparation, Shadow Step, and a Vanish left. So if Bloodyface can actually leave that Unraveler in play, it's going to really be pinching Roger and tripping him up much more. All right, get a dagger.
Okay. This kind of implies that he wants to end with some kind of Wax Elemental. Oh, actually, the Glacier Shard makes sense, too. Same kind of one-man defensive play, and not double bounce, because he's still safe at 12 life. And I like this. You know, he recognizes, you know what? I only have a couple more spells like Preparation and Mimic Pod anyways.
But this, he daggered here rather than playing.
Oh, wait, he can silence his
Yeah,
own
this
minion for
actually
lethal!
is lethal with Hellfire.
Oh my gosh.
Bloodyface with a shake of the head. I mean, the play that I was talking about, I
Wow.
think leaves him safe from this because he removes both of the 4/4s and gains more life. He wanted to dagger up and get his deckhand online, but he could have done the same thing and just had more mana and replayed the Scalehide.
Right.
He put himself in a position where he died to silence Hellfire when he could have been safe from that, and all it cost him was, yes, he would have lost his Scalehide, but he wouldn't have had to been able to re-dagger.
Right, but he didn't need to because he has Stone Tusk Board.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And they're same damage. In fact, he just wasted 2 more mana kind of
he
first.
spent 2 mana so that he could not have to spend that mana at whatever point that he had deckhand, but he was just, that game was on such a knife's edge
Right.
that it feels like he couldn't afford to waste it. And I think perhaps what was going through his head is, well, he can't cast Hellfire because of the Unraveler.
Right.
And he wasn't considering, well, if he silences the freeze off, he also silences the effect off, and that lets him kill you because both points of damage can come in.
That is backbreaking. I think Quest Rogue and even Warlock were 2 decks that Bloodyface felt very confident against, and now he has to beat Cloning Priest 3 times from Roger, and that is difficult because he does have even Paladin, does have his Quest Rogue, but he also has the 50-50 matchup with his own Clone Priest, assuming that they're the same deck lists, which I don't think is the case.
Shall bring victory.
No, Bloodyface has the more just big minion version that includes a Lich King
And Lyra.
and Lyra, where Roger is playing the much more just direct combo-focused version, which my understanding is substantially stronger in the mirror match because it has more capability of bursting rather than playing a kind of board-based game.
And that's kind of the importance, is that the Cloning Priest from Bloodyface had a much better matchup against even Warlock than it did against the Mirror.
And this is an incredibly good draw from Roger here. The double Radiant Elemental gives him the ability to contest the board early and help fight back against Bloodyface's early board presence, which is really how Bloodyface wants to sort of snowball the early game and win. These are generally, these are your combo pieces late, but they also are just 2/3s for 2. And Bloodyface doesn't have a great way to protect his board against them.
Well, not really much you can do in this spot. Hydrologist is pretty much the only minion he can play from hand. Looks like he's going to favor holding on to that Hydrologist in case he needs something else. One of the big important cards that you can get as a very cheeky play is Eye for an Eye. This is something that a lot of players, they're not thinking about when they go up against a giant burst deck. But if they're going to Mind Blast you for 40, guess what? You tie.
The second Radiant is also clearly quite powerful here. Bloodyface has True Silver Champion and Blessing of Kings. There is that Master Spell, which is in Roger's hand, and Bloodyface, of course, knows that's in the deck as well. I think the options here for Bloodyface, you can coin out a Blessing of Kings or coin out a True Silver Champion. Blessing of Kings gives him more board presence that can actually pressure Roger after the fact, but is vulnerable to a Shadow or Death or Master Spell, and unfortunately for Bloodyface, that's what he's got. Actually, he's got both of them.
Yeah, the Death here is actually an interesting choice from Roger. Master Spell, I guess, has more prevalent uses against things like a Corpse Taker.
Or just Spikered Steed.
Steed.
Well, there's Corpse Taker too.
Right.
So as you mentioned, Roger astutely holding on to that Master Spell, and also has Shadow Essence that can come down next turn. So
he has to weigh the option: True Silver or Corpse Taker.
True Silver, Corpse Taker, or even just Spellbreaker. Spellbreaker is actually a non irrelevant option here for Bloodyface because it would eliminate the ability from the Radiant Elemental and give him some board presence to push for damage. Yeah. It's going to be True Silver, though.
I do like the idea of holding on to Spellbreaker in case your opponent just plays a Malygos on the board and you can't answer it.
Yeah.
Because Malygos is one of those minions you definitely want to kill, but at the same time, they go into the Resurrect pool. So Silence feels like a good compromise. Yes, they get 4/12 minion that sticks on the board, but it won't die anytime soon, and it's tricky for your opponent to deal with. And I think with that pass, Bloodyface made the absolute correct call in this spot, which is to shut off a turn from Roger and give himself a setup opportunity here.
Yeah, but it will be Shadow Essence time for Roger here. He's got Velen already, so there's Malygos.
And that's where Silence actually kicks in this spot exactly. Or you can go for the Spikered Steed, but you do play into both the Psychic Scream. Did I say Spikered Steed? But you do get the threat of Psychic Scream or Massive Spell in the following end.
It is a little bit awkward to silence this because you just give your opponent a 4/12, and that's pretty hard to kill. And you don't really have much of a board presence at the moment. But if you do kill it, well, your opponent gets to res it. If they have a Spellstone, they res that plus a Radiant Elemental, and that's not good. So you're trying to find ways to avoid getting minions in the res pool for them, but it's not really. Yeah, we see Bloodyface.
I mean, that's the catch-22 of this priest deck. You don't want to kill it because Eternal Servitude and Spirit Lash can undo all the pressure that you're doing, that you're trying to apply. You don't want to leave it on the board because of the spell damage. That's why Silence does feel fairly effective, and that's why Transform effects are so good against this deck in particular, and why Shaman and Mage, having the two classes with those Transform effects, they're absent, but their presence would be sorely needed against a deck like this.
Bloodyface deciding, all right, well, is this...
Is it 10 to the face?
Wow. That is aggressive from Bloodyface here.
I mean, he's got True Silver Champion, 2 Consecrations, a Spellbreaker.
It's
that's
true.
That's just damage pushing.
All right, well. There's the Master Spell for Roger. He knew that the death was gone, but there is the one Master Spell that does end up being pretty bad for Bloodyface here. He gets the damage into the face, but now that Malygos remains alive.
Yeah, that Master Spell is not what Bloodyface wants to see. And one thing I did get to talk to also about Bloodyface is that he feels like he does have a difficulty sometimes undoing the tilt. He feels like, yes, he's very good at technical play, but sometimes he gets his own head, and I feel like I can see a little bit of that. Just, the scoff, the dismissive eyebrow raise, the eye rolling. You have to control all of that, keep your head focused in the game, and try to think about what are some ways you can pull yourself back, even though you have this obstacle in front of you.
That obstacle's at Malygos right now. It's a big obstacle.
It's a big one. It's not one that completely determines the game, though. And Roger's hand is slightly awkward for that. That being said, if this Malygos isn't dealt with, this Holy Smite now jumps from a 7 damage to a 14 damage spell. And, that becomes critical because Bloodyface can't take too much more damage besides, if 2 spells get paired together with that Malygos.
He's also in an awkward position where even if he silences this, it can just get itself killed. He can silence it, and then, all right, well, I trade it into your Spellbreaker and res.
Right.
And, that's a position that is very awkward. Bloodyface decides, all right, well, I got to get off the board and try to commit what I can to developing here. Cloning Gallery.
Yeah,
The
but
draw
he's
for
already-
Roger. He's already drawn his big minions.
Yeah. He's drawn almost all of his minions. I think the
Right.
only minion left in his deck is Zilliax.
Yes, I believe you're correct. Cloning Gallery is 9 mana, 1/1 Zilliax.
Blessing of Kings. Prophet Valen is very scary because of its burst, but also because of the heal capabilities.
Yes.
So I think Bloodyface contemplating about silencing this minion as well.
I think that perhaps just King's Spellbreaker maybe something is on Bloodyface's mind here to try to push that damage through.
What about Kings and Choose Over Champion? Because you have 3 minions on board, your opponent can only trade onto 1, and you have the possibility of swinging 2 turns of Choose Over with Consecration. So you put your opponent down to 8 now, your opponent heals back up to 10, Choose Over, Consecration, plus Blessing of Kings afterwards should be able to finish it. Oh, actually, you can't play all that, because you don't have 12 mana.
Right. Well, he could, if he Spellbreakers this,
Right.
Spellbreaker and True Silver this turn.
Oh, he doesn't have a Lich King, you're right, so he doesn't need to hold on to that Spellbreaker.
Yeah, so
outside of
Spellbreaker,
that.
if he does play Spellbreaker True Silver this turn, he gets 6 damage in.
Right, so it goes to 8.
Your magic.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It sets it up.
So
best.
he's trying to set up, okay, well, I'm just trying to push the damage I can. You have stopped me pretty well. You got your big minions. I need you to not be able to get this this Velen dead now.
Right.
And this, unlike the Malagos last turn, ooh, that's Spirit Lash. Spellstone is going to bring back Malagos.
Oh, you're right. There's 2 different unique minions in the entire res pool right now. It's
Yeah.
only Malagos, it's only Radiant Elemental.
Spellstone brings back Malagos. Radiant Elemental, Spirit Lash
Full heal. That's 30 life being gained right now.
is going to wipe off everything but this Velen, and frankly, wipe out Bloodyface's chance of return to the finals. 22 life gain. Bloodyface is just trying to push the face, and now we see him shaking his head. That's all right. Well, I don't know what I can do about that.
Well, he does have one final way to actually reset the position. We talk about the Hydrologist and its role in this matchup. And if he picks up Eye for an Eye, oh, he did not get it. So if he gets Eye for an Eye, it'll come to the point where Roger actually might have to go for that burst opportunity.
He's got Anduin in hand. He can always ping before he goes for a big burst. This is just... he can Consecration, he can clear these, and then there's a Malagos waiting in the hand. Come down. It's just such a brutal situation. Bloodyface was really trying his best to just push that damage to Roger, and the Spirit Lash comes the exact right time.
Reporting for duty.
Well, there's not really much else that Bloodyface can do in this spot except pressure, and Roger playing the Tempo Malagos might have to just let that thing live. But he can continue to pressure a little bit here. He has the Tyrion and Redemption combination.
Yeah, I mean, this is something, at least. And, Bloodyface, rather, Roger has a variety of ways he can respond to it. He could just Psychic Scream, because he already has a dead Malagos.
Right.
So Psychic Screaming here, doesn't deprive that of from his pool. Another Spirit Lash.
Spirit Lash actually works out fairly well for the Redemption to revive very weak minions from Bloodyface.
Yes.
I don't know how applicable it is in this situation, just right off the first glance.
Must consider.
Even if also Roger goes for a Shadow Reaper Anduin, it actually revives that Tyrion, so it's
Right.
kind of the same thing.
So he could bump Tyrion, heal his Malagos, cast the Spirit Lash, that I believe would revive the Argent
Silverhand
Protector.
recruits?
I think that maybe one of the recruits was in play first.
Yeah, Argent Protector has to have come down after.
Right,
the
but
damage.
if the
Oh, you're
Murloc
right,
were
you're
in play
right.
first. Yeah, I think the Murloc was the only thing in play, so I think it would revive Argent Protector.
Oh my.
Oh, okay, he's gonna go for the Anduin.
So he's
He
gonna.
does still have the ability to Spirit Lash after the fact.
Right.
So this will kill the.
But it comes back as a 6/1
It
device.
gets rezzed. He can bump Spirit Lash, which does mean that his
just
his
bump.
Malagos will die. Okay, yeah, that also works. Bump ping.
So 5, 10, 11. This is still a lot of damage.
It is. It is. And you can get rid of the Malagos, which means the Spirit Lash is not some sort of full heal.
Right. From bloodyface, I kind of wonder how much I want to extend to this board because I am afraid of the Psychic Scream possibilities. And if you invest all this, like, let's say you go all in here, you like Bless, you have Kings, trade, or whatnot, and you set up like this giant board with Argent Protector, you are going to get screened and then you have nothing left.
Right. So there's some, and there's also the question of like how much damage can you take? You're now facing Anduin.
Right.
So you're not just worried about Mind Blast damage, you're worried about getting chipped down over turns. The Shadow Reaper Anduin is not necessarily a common inclusion in these decks. It's a little bit more unusual choice from Roger's deck. And yeah, bloodyface decides, all right, I gotta use this. Just push this damage where I can. Don't want to use my face because I want to keep myself at least somewhat preserved against that burst.
Yeah, and this is not trivial amount of damage either.
No.
I mean, Roger's now at 11. Spirit
He
Lash
does
is
have Spirit
useful.
Lash. And he has Psychic Scream. So Mind Blast and Holy Smite. Bloodyface, of course, being at 21 is not out of the woods.
Right.
But there are...
This looks like a Spirit Lash play.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Spirit Lash from Roger. He can ping this, Spirit Lash, ping again. Smite? Perhaps?
I think he's just really afraid if he Psychic Screams, he could just die to Avenging Wrath number 2. Right? Because it'd be 13 damage.
Right. So I think that, yeah, I think he definitely wants to cast the Spirit Lash this turn because there's just... Is it likely there'll be more minions in this? You know, if he does just say... we see a Mouse of the Xerix briefly.
I mean, Ziliax, it's just a 1/1 though.
Yeah.
You don't really do anything with it. I mean, bloodyface does see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, but just it's very small. It's very slight.
Yeah, just gonna go ahead and remove the board here.
I mean, if you're bloodyface, you have to kind of be happy that he's not directing this to your face.
It's true. It's true. This is definitely better than the alternative of taking 21 this turn.
It's an Amani Berserker, which honestly, just having anything that is not a 2-health breakpoint is nice at this point.
Right.
However, bloodyface needs a little bit extra damage. Just a little bit.
And he needs to find 5 damage somewhere, and frankly, I believe that's just Avenging Wrath. He has Valnir still in his deck, but will he get turns to swing with Valnir? Even just that Xerix Cloning Gallery for a 1/1 Ziliax.
I mean, there's also the possibility that he just gets a Lich King, and then the Lich King picks up 5 damage source, which is fairly common.
And we see bloodyface deciding he's going to
Ooh, I like
Divine
this.
Shield the 1/1.
So this increases his overall health on the board.
Oh, that's a 5/5 Ziliax.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
that is
dear.
the best draw in his deck.
That may just be the nail in bloodyface's coffin. That Spirit Lash, that was the coffin itself, but now Roger's just driving home. All right, you thought you could burn me out. I'm back up to 15. I got a 5/5 Life Stealer.
Okay, that Valnir is a pretty decent draw, but not the one he needs right now.
Yeah, I mean, it does something. I mean, I think it actually, it's an interesting situation because, you know, bloodyface, if he does want to play Valnir, does he want to swing with his Valnir this turn to reset it so he can go on his next minion?
Right, like a Windfury Harpy would be also the way he gets back in this.
Yeah, but I mean, Roger has that Psychic Scream waiting. He has that Mind Blast in hand. If bloodyface is attacking into a 5/5, yeah, bloodyface recognizes, all right, I need to get Valnir online, get my minions buffed, goes to 14. Mind Blast alone is 9 with the hero powers.
Right, and then he has the ability to get to 11 with Psychic Scream guaranteed.
Mass Hysteria clears this board.
Yep, I like it. And you also get 2 more damage in.
Yep.
Bloodyface on his last turn. And I don't, or second to last turn rather.
There just isn't anything at this point. He had the hope of Avenging Wrath before that Ziliax came out of the deck.
Okay.
That's a Corpse Taker. Goes to the face. Big Corpse Taker.
That's a huge Corpse Taker.
That's getting screamed right back in the deck at worst.
That's true. Just now ability attack. And with that, Roger puts bloodyface into a checkmate position.
Ping your face. Scream those into your deck. Mind Blast waiting to end it next turn.
So close, yet so far for bloodyface. And Chrysalis Gangor just a little bit Not enough, not by a long shot.
Yeah, we saw this even Paladin deck for bloodyface just kind of struggle. But Roger, he will end that struggle. Mind Blast to the face, ping, Mind Blast, and that is it. Roger is moving on to the finals.
3 unfavored matchups and 3 upsets. Roger from Taiwan goes to the grand finals and beats Bloodyface from the USA. But you know what? 2 back-to-back seasons, a 2nd place, and a 3rd/4th place. You can't really ask for that much better from Bloodyface, and even though he's disappointed right now, he can go back home feeling proud of himself after he's calmed down and collected his thoughts, because I'm sure he probably has a lot of things to say about that series. But if you look at his overall performance, one of the best that we've seen from the Year of the Raven.
Yeah, he has been incredibly consistent, but today, it belongs to Roger.
Yeah, and overall, I mean, you can also even credit to the fact that Bloodyface looked like he had some moments where it could have been a shaky decision-making.
Yeah. There were definitely a few spots where we talked. He could have survived in that Quest Rogue game and not left himself dead to the Silence plus Hellfire, but decided to sort of invest in the future turn, and then he just didn't get any more turns.
Right, and then meanwhile, yes, Roger kind of got some of the answers he needed at that time, but I mean, when the game delivers you those right cards and Roger's playing technically on point, can't really be too upset about that. And I think that's a great way to improve yesterday's performance as well, because there were moments where it's like, ooh, I'm not sure, Roger, this looks a little bit messy from you. But, it's all about how you're able to pick yourself up from that. Yesterday's play has no implications on today.
Yeah, and now Roger will go on to the finals where he will face the winner of our next match, which is going to be a little bit different, aggro versus aggro.
That's right. We're going to head on over to Roger for his winning interview and a couple words on his victory.
Thanks very much, guys. I'm joined by Roger after qualifying to the grand finals. You faced off against Bloodyface, beat him 3-0. You guys had very similar lineups. What were you most worried about going into the series?
恭喜你又进入了决赛。那你在打 Bloodyface 的时候你直接3-0的他。那你们牌组其实是非常类似的。那你在打他的时候有什么想法？
其实我打他的牌组，就是因为他有一个圣骑士，还有野兽猎，其实相对是比较劣势一点。但我没有想到，就是有几个劣势对局可以走的，就是比较轻松。对。
Because Bloodyface has a Beast Hunter and a Paladin, and I've never thought I can overcome those disadvantage matches, so I'm very happy.
Did your confidence level go up after you won the very tough matchup with your Quest Rogue? Did that change things at all for you?
在你任务贼打赢了劣势对战之后，你的信心有没有因此而提升很多？
提升蛮多的，就因为其实我起手那张消失，我很犹豫要不要留，但我还是就是尝试着试试看，结果就刚好他可能前期那个手牌没有那个太好，那消失也就发挥到作用，我觉得蛮开心的。
So I was really wondering, should I keep the vanish, one more vanish in my hands, because Bloodyface didn't have really strong opening, so that vanish performed well. So I'm really happy.
Yeah, it ended up working out for you with having both vanishes, but now you're moving on to the grand finals, and it's not going to get easier for you because waiting on the other side of the bracket is both Bunny Hopper and Jing, who both have aggressive lineups, even more aggressive than Bloodyface. So how do you think about your chances going into the finals against either of those players?
那你在决赛，你要么就是碰到 Bunny Hopper， 不然就是 Jing。那他们两个的快攻牌组是比 Bloodyface 还更凶的。那你有没有比较担心什么事情？
我两个都很担心，因为其实我打他们两个都蛮难打。不过我上次打 Bunny Hopper 其实也是因为我自己的失误，然后导致有可能有机会赢的局送掉。那如果我再遇到他的话，我会更小心。然后另外我会打俊也是对。
So because last time I lost to the Bunny Hopper because of my own mistakes, so the next time I face him, I will be more careful about it, and of course with Jing as well.
All right, well, good luck in those finals, and go rest up and try and prepare. But for now, we're going to send it back over to Danny Kibler.
Taiwan continues to impress. Last year, it was Tom60229 finally getting that World Championship title that APAC has craved for years. this year, leading up to this championship, it was the story of Blood Trail and how he was taking up that mantle along with that Tom and Samuel Sal left behind. And now perhaps there's a new challenger rising that we didn't expect, which is, you know, a streamer first that used to be a competitive player who's made that deep run to that final. So congrats to Roger. And we're going to see who between Jing and Bunny Hopper can challenge him for that title.
Yeah, and you know, similarly, we've had so many of these seasons so far at the championships that have been, you know, is it Europe, is it the Americas, and now, you know, we could have Asia Pacific and China in the final if Jing is able to overcome Bunny Hopper, which is not something that we've seen yet.
That's right. So we are one semifinal in. We have one more to go, followed by the tiebreaker tussle, as well as the grand finals. We're just getting started here with Championship Sunday. Roger takes down bloodyface from the USA and sends him packing by a score of 3-0. When we return, Bunny Hopper from Germany takes on Jing from China. Don't miss it. You're watching the HCT Winter Championship.